ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for our discussion here today on creative collaboration. My name is indeed Kerrie Finch, and I'm the founding partner at futurefactor. And we're a communications consultancy based here in Amsterdam, in Los Angeles, and also in London. And we help our clients articulate and amplify a leadership position. And we specialize in the creative industry and in tech innovators. So I'm especially excited to talk with our three guests here today. We've got three kick-ass experts from the worlds of brands, bikes, and burgers. All the Bs. We've got all the Bs, everybody. Please do send in your questions through the online chat. Andrew will be posing them at the end of the discussion. We want to hear from you. We want some controversy and some debate. So please throw in your questions our way, and we'll try and get to as many as possible. So today we are talking about creative collaboration, and we're going to be hearing, as I said, from our three guests. We have with us Carlijn Marchaldon, who is the Director of Communications for VanMoof. And you and your team at the company are looking to convert the next 1 billion people into bicycle riders, basically around the world, which is quite the ambition and a great one too. We have with us Steph Morrow. Steph is joining us from Virtue, and that's part of the Vice Media Group. And Steph, she's the strategist for Western Europe, which we've just decided involves 5 countries, not 6. Is that right, Steph?
Correct.
That's correct. Okay, great. And we have us also Hope Kitterman, who is the International Marketing Manager at Five Guys. And you grew up eating burgers and fries from the Five Guys brand, so you know all about the beauty and benefit of burgers and fries, and how to gain fans and consumers around the world. So we all know, of course, that we're in difficult times. Let me start with you, Steph. Let's ask the first question to you. What I've been noticing, certainly at futurefactor, is that in times of crisis, in times of difficulty, creativity actually fuels ideas, it fuels innovation, and that challenge fuels creativity. What's your take on that at Virtue? And how has it impacted your world and what you're working on today?
Yeah, so I definitely would agree. In our way of working, it's been more of an evolution than a revolution, because we've worked borderlessly as an agency for the last about 1.5 years. So it's not super unusual for us that you'd have a creative director from Shanghai working with a project manager from the UK and a strat from Amsterdam, but I think it's obviously been a huge step change for the industry holistically, and that has a lot of pros and cons in our ways of working and in the output. But I think one of the most positive outcomes that we've seen is the ability to bring people together from all corners of the world in creative ways that we hadn't previously done. So something that I'm particularly excited about that happened is we started doing what we call vibe sessions, which are Vice initiatives for the benefit of everyone. And essentially we bring together people from all corners of the company, from Vice, from Refinery 29, Pulse, which is a production company, Virtue, which is our in-house agency, and just put out open briefs to everyone all around the world to see what types of ideas we can get back to make the world a bit of a better place in this crazy time.
And that's been created since the pandemic and since lockdown.
Exactly.
And it's specifically in order to try and join some of the dots across borders and across disciplines, basically.
Exactly.
Can you tell us about one of the projects?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the projects that we've worked on that's been really cool was this idea that came out of, I believe, the Northern European team, which was of this insight that, like, how can you basically, like, wash your hands properly if you can't really see that you've done it? And there are all of these ways that people talk about, like, knowing that you've washed your hands for long enough, whether it's like singing your favorite pop song or the chorus 3 times or whatever. And we thought, like, what if you could create a soap that you could just see and wash your hands, and then when the soap, you couldn't see it anymore. You just knew that your hands were clean. So that came out of this initiative. I think originally we were calling it Dirty Clean.
I'm a big fan of Dirty Clean, by the way. And I would like this to be sold in stores. I thought this was really fantastic when I saw it.
Thanks. Yeah, we're stoked on it, and we put out basically a call to partners. So if anyone wants to collaborate with us to make this real, we'd love to do it. So this is just one of the few ideas that came out of those 5 sessions. And it's been really cool since the pandemic. It's one of the few positive things that I can point to where it's like, this is a really nice way of working, and we've continued it throughout.
Hope, is there any similar project that's been happening internally at Five Guys? Because you work across, I think it's 17 countries.
Yeah.
So you've got quite the bandwidth, and all those countries, of course, have different laws. They've got different ways of working culturally. I'd be fascinated to hear if there's something similar which has come out of the pandemic for you folks.
Yeah, so I think similar to Steph in ways that ideas are kind of coming from places kind of collaboratively from all over. We've definitely had to implement the same because we've really had to tap on our experts from our head of food safety to our trainers, and we've really needed their expertise to communicate the message accurately. Yeah. I mean, in a time of crisis, we do want to be creative to get the message across, but our call to action, where we're constantly inviting people into our stores and wanting to welcome them and have a good time, has really had to change to say, maybe stay home and get delivery, but if you do come in, you need to take these certain steps. So we've had to get creative with different areas of the business that we hadn't necessarily before.
So, I mean, obviously, as a you guys are burgers and fries, and you have huge fans. But of course, globally, HoReCa has been having a terrible time. It's been incredibly challenging, and the rules seem to be going like this. So, how do you cope across borders? How do you work collaboratively in order to join up some of those dots?
Yeah, sure. So for us, cross borders, it's been essential because we really watched from the beginning of the pandemic when things were kind of kicking off in Asia, and we do have stores in Singapore and Hong Kong, and so they were really the first to feel the impacts of that. So we were supporting them from our international HQ here in Amsterdam. But like I said, we kind of have watched it take effect from east to west. And so we've had to roll out that way. And as we were talking about, every country's different. Yeah. So being nimble was crucial for us. So we scrappily got together here in the Netherlands and shot a safety video. And like I said, pull in people that aren't usually part of the creative process and take them along on the journey.
I think we've got some stills of that actually for the audience to see.
Yeah, and you can see us here, I believe it's in the Utrecht store, shooting a video. The store was closed. And then when we had more or less a finished product, we really had to tap on our countries to use local language, translate for subtitles, and roll it out in a way that was locally relevant at the time, because everyone, not only did we have different rules and regulations, but everybody mentally was in a different place, in a different mood, and our customers, who is our audience, were the ones to receive that message. So we had to trust that the message that was so important was able to translate locally.
And you focus on social. So, obviously the social channels are everything to you and a company like Five Guys, and in fact to all of us when people can't go into stores. So we've all had to adapt and we've all had to pivot. Yes. But this was one way where you were trying to share the message that we're helping you, dear customer, and if you're ordering from us, this is safe.
Yeah, and that you can feel comfortable. I think it's really important that when people walk in a store, they see hand sanitizers, masks, stickers on the floor for social distancing, people visibly just cleaning the lobby. But beyond that, what we saw was, in the past, the majority of our sales would be in-store brick and mortar. And we've seen that, flip-flop, and now it's majority delivery.
So you said at one point, we were talking about this yesterday, it was 80% in-store, and now it's actually 80% takeaway online.
Yeah, and even more than that. And when our restaurants, like currently in the Netherlands, restaurants aren't open, so we are 100% takeaway and delivery.
Right.
So communicating that, having really good relationships with our delivery service providers, collaborating with their creatives, it's things that we hadn't done so urgently in the past, and I think this is something that we will continue into the future, for sure.
And Caroline, you folks at VanMoof have actually launched a product during these crazy times, and I think you've had to pivot quite considerably. And actually, we've got some stills behind us now of what was going to be the launch. Do you want to talk us about? Don't cry, but do you want to talk us about what didn't happen, maybe, and then how you actually pivoted, and maybe what the joy was out of that? Of course, there's a huge amount of angst, but. Right. Success came from that, right?
Yeah, luckily some success. Yeah, I've been at VanMoof now almost 4 years, so I've had my fair share of launches, and this year we launched one of our best bikes ever, but it was nothing went to plan, of course.
Brilliant.
We planned.
Because that's what we want. We plan for nothing to go to plan,
yeah,
right?
And to your point, a lot of creativity comes of it, and I think this is my my most proud project to have worked on with everyone at VanMoof as a result. So we launched our S3 and X3 this year, and the idea was to do
so where is this? This is in Milan,
yeah,
right?
This is at the biggest design fair of the world, Salone del Mobile in Milan. The idea of working in Italy.
The epicenter of lockdown.
Yes, yes. The idea was a very exclusive event for the press. We're working with an artist. We're going to split open, as a surprise, split open a car, of course, an Italian car.
Like an Alfa Romero or something equally worthy.
Yeah, months in the making. From it, the new bike would emerge. And we had this whole launch plan around it. But then, very early on.
What's this image here we're looking at?
This is some of the impressions, what it would look like if it had happened. So someone's cutting it open, the bike emerging, this whole installation. So very exclusive for press, a whole PR plan around it, a lot of parties involved, and then, of course, it got canceled. But we still had to, or wanted to, launch our bike. So we had 4 weeks to turn that whole thing around, and we created an...
you had 4 whole weeks.
4 whole weeks,
Come on.
yeah. And,
4 whole weeks.
Plenty of time and a lot of talent, and we put together our first virtual launch. And
all your creative talent is internal, is that right?
Yes, yeah. And as with the original plan and with this one, we did reach out to partners that helped us, and with them, we couldn't have made it happen. So with the virtual launch, we got help from Resin, and they did an amazing job helping us rethink what a virtual launch should look like. So this was this was April, very beginning of the pandemic. There were hardly any mental models of how do you do this.
And also the goalposts kept changing, and they were changing for all of us, of course.
Yeah.
None of us knew what was going to happen in the next 3 days, let alone the next three weeks. And we all had to stay incredibly agile.
Yeah.
And I think what happens, certainly from my experience, was you get catatonic or you get creative. Would people agree with that?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Caroline, what happened?
We had to make it virtual, but then the fund started working with different people, different crews in different countries, because there was no travel possible. So the idea was, how do you bring this bike to life on screen and it not be just a registration of a live event, like a TV show? So we work with CGI overlays, bringing the bike to life. Getting our riders,
people on bikes.
Yeah, getting riders, making them or asking them to film themselves.
So these are actual fans. These are
they
real
got
consumers.
to ride the bike before anyone else and to share their experience. And our creative team and film team, they made a compilation that was in the middle of the event, and then we had Taco from Amsterdam and then Ties from the factory in Taipei, where he lives. Live streaming this whole thing. So for a while we became a broadcaster too. And then that original idea of doing something with cars that stuck in our mind, especially with our creative director, Pascal, and we turned it in the summertime into our first ever TV ad.
So this is the very first one. And it was
Yes.
quite the controversy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because you played into sustainability, into new
New ways of rethinking
Yeah.
transportation, the old and the new, and then you saw a little bit of car come back.
Yeah, we're seeing it on the screen now. We
Right,
haven't got
yeah.
any sound at the moment, but we'll just play it without. And this was picked up by quite a lot of the media, if I remember rightly, because it looked like what you were saying was cars, bikes,
Yeah, well,
which effectively
that
is what you're
wasn't
saying, right?
the beginning. The beginning was so it went on TV across Europe, but in France it got banned
Oh, that was
for
it.
bringing the car industry in discredit.
Disrepute.
Disrepute, yeah. And then my amazing PR team helped make it bigger. And then I think in the end we got a media value that we couldn't even begin to hope for in return, which was good. And we started to spark a debate.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about collaboration and creativity sparking debate. So we talked previously, Hope, about, different social channels and how you use them at Five Guys and how, us as individuals work on our social channels personally, but how you work as a brand is something, of course, else again. How have you embraced, for example, TikTok, and hopefully you're going to show us a dance. We talked about it.
For everyone, no. I'll spare you, but of course, I think Five Guys is really lucky. Some have called us a cult brand, and we have lots of fans who really love us, and we also have a lot of crew who love working for us. And all of that to say that kind of around the pandemic, I started to see a lot of videos in the store cropping up, and on all channels. And normally our core channels are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and depending on the market. So of course, we're actually entering China very soon, and TikTok's been high on our radar. And of course, TikTok really grew, the popularity grew during the pandemic, especially with dances coming out. And so we started seeing videos of crew around the world posting videos, socially distanced dancing, and being really into it. And normally, we don't look too much at TikTok because I think we really use social for customer service. That is it. No more, no less. We use it for customer service. That's why we're there. But we couldn't ignore the fact that lots of people were posting about us on TikTok.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, we started seeing all these videos crop up. And for us, we don't want to gatekeep brand love. We want people to post about the brand.
Brand love.
We want brand love, and we don't want to tell people how to express that, but we decided that in order to kind of keep some of it at bay and to kind of control the message around a crisis and around food safety and the health of our crew and customers, which is our top priority always, we decided to let our crew in the UAE, who are always very, like the Dubai Mall store always looks like it's a massive party. We said, you know what, guys, can you create something for us about safety in the store? You're going to do it anyway, but we would love to see this and this. And they were thrilled. And so we were actually able to create, in collaboration with Deliveroo, our delivery partners, we all kind of just came together, the guys in the store, our delivery service provider, and us, to relay the message. And I will also say that Five Guys is very, our aesthetic's quite lo-fi, if you've ever been in one of our stores. So I think that this was kind of perfect for us. It's
Yeah.
what?
It's quite red.
Yeah, it's a little bit red.
Yeah. So let's take a quick look, because it's
Yeah.
TikTok length.
Yeah. It's nice and short. The filter.
We care.
Short and sweet.
Fantastic. And Steph, I mean, so this was, you know, as you say, it's people in store, it's staff, but it's staff expressing themselves the way they actually want to express themselves.
On a
And they've
phone.
made it themselves. They've done it on their phones, which is, you know, pretty incredible. Still waiting for that dance you promised us before we came on stage. No
commercial
pressure. Steph, if anybody can see Steph, she is
wallflower.
camouflaged as,
Yeah.
as a zebra. It's just a talking head at the moment, people, potentially. Steph, so you talked about Vibe, which, you know, is a great internal initiative to stimulate creativity, stimulate debate, stimulate cross-borders thinking.
Yeah.
What else have you folks been doing? Because I know that you've personally been setting up a few things for mental health, which I think is fantastic. Because we've, you know, as a lot of people, we all know people, if not ourselves, who have been challenged with mental health issues. It's been a really unusual year, 2020. Let's just put that out there. And you've been working also with some other sort of purposeful initiatives. Tell us about what's been going on internally at Virtue.
Yeah, so from, I guess, an internal perspective, I think that something that we felt a lot is the importance of giving back and doing stuff that's actually meaningful to the world. Right now, it just doesn't feel like the right time to purely focus on commercial messages. And one of the issues that's closest to our team's heart, especially Hope and I obviously both being American, but our team in the Americas feel it even more, is the upcoming presidential election.
There's an election? Who knew?
I know, you probably haven't seen anything, but actually there's an election coming up. And one of the most important topics, obviously, in the States is making sure that people get out and vote.
Yep.
And so our ECD Jeannie in the US is actually also a drag queen who's competed on Drag Race Thailand, and had the brilliant idea of like, okay, how can we stimulate people in swing states like Pennsylvania to vote? And Jeannie and the team got Bob the Drag Queen and Peppermint from the Drag Race franchise together.
What is Jeannie's drag name, by the way? Just, you know.
Jeannie.
Oh, it is? Okay, fair enough. Short and sweet. Got it.
Yeah, so they put together this essentially like proactive campaign called The Most Office with Bob the Drag Queen and Peppermint to get people in the U.S. and particularly in swing states to vote. And it's a super nice campaign. I think
we will get to it at some point.
Okay.
I think I'm causing problems because I'm jumping around in the video chain.
Here we go. And that's Jeannie actually also starring in it as the mailbox.
That's Jeannie in the mailbox.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. That's the short version, clearly.
That's the short version. There's a 2-minute version if you check it out on YouTube.
If only we had it with us. But that's something that went out internally. Or that actually went out publicly
that actually
as well?
went out into the real world. But
Okay.
I think that simultaneously what we've seen is that this period, for some people, like for me personally, I found that I'm really productive working from home, but I think that really varies. I have a team of 4 that I manage, and we have teams globally that are much larger, and it felt increasingly important not only to make sure that people were doing okay, but to really like facilitate that and give people ways of getting some headspace.
Yeah.
So I personally started doing lunchtime guided breathwork and meditation sessions, just like 15 minutes, 3 times a week. And that was a really nice experience because it not only gave colleagues a totally different context through which they could interact, but I think it was also a nice moment to give people permission to like not always be working during work. I think in an office, you have those moments way more easily where like if you have some downtime, you'll go grab a coffee or whatever it is, you know, and you feel like you have the permission to take a walk if you need to and you don't have a meeting. And I think now when we're working from home, people can feel a lot of pressure to constantly be available on Slack or on WhatsApp. And I think that those types of sessions and initiatives, we're also setting up a sort of water cooler roulette chat thing internally.
And you were concerned that some people might be a bit sniffy or a bit cynical about it, but you found that it actually there was a lot of traction internally.
Yeah, I mean definitely, especially because I mean we work in like marketing where you have a sense in a company like Vice where people might say like meditation feels like a very far cry away from advertising. But it was super nice. People were really open. We had people showing up regularly, people from parts of the business that I never, ever would have expected to see in those sessions. And I think it really reminded me also of like that sense of when things are just shaken up, you never know what's going to happen. And sometimes that doesn't work out well. But in these cases, it can actually stimulate some really nice points of connection and creativity.
And exactly that. And Caroline and Hope, what ways have you found in your companies internally where, you know, the current lockdown, the current pandemic situation has actually stimulated creative opportunity, or it's stimulated collaboration that you didn't expect? What surprised you? What's been positively surprising?
I think for us, or from my experience this year, yeah, as I was saying before, every single plan you had in place disappeared. So you had all this, I think, opportunity, but also the challenge to think on your feet. And if you see an opportunity to make it happen, I think our internal film team made some really beautiful work for internal communications throughout the year. That made me really proud. Again, giving you
to
that
be a
feeling.
colleague and to be a...
And our HR team really stepped up with surprising us with gifts or packages or coffee vouchers, and that I think I appreciated a lot.
Only this morning I got a Halloween gift basket from my own company. Thank you, Future Factor, by the way. More of that. Hope, what have you been finding at Five Guys that surprised you, that's connected you to people that you might not have expected to be connected to, that stimulated thinking?
Yeah, well, I think that our office, we're more tight-knit than ever. And this comes from just kind of reaching out at different times in different ways. Maybe it's a WhatsApp group that's been created because I think we all realize how much we do want to keep in touch. And we do want to have a distance lunch or have a casual coffee on Zoom, but also beyond that, something that we all were talking about yesterday is how you can see the backgrounds in people's, homes or wherever they're working from. And for me, that's people from all over the world. And so, I can see kind of the dinner rush behind my Hong Kong, friends or agency. When it's earlier in the day for us, and you see people's pets, and I think it's quite unique. And
there's a lot of cattails going by on my Zooms.
Lots of ears.
Yeah.
But I also think that kind of opens the stage for you to ask in a more casual way input from other people. So
it's a great leveler, actually. I don't know if you folks have found the same, but we're all in this rectangle of some video conferencing suite or another,
and no one's wearing pants.
No one's wearing underwear, let alone pants. And we're dressing differently. Some people have haircuts went out the window for quite some time, let's say. Makeup went out the window.
That's the first time I'm wearing makeup in a while.
Washing. And all those favourite clothes that you never wear anymore. But, and as you say, it's a great leveler because you've got this rectangle and the backgrounds are different. And it's actually, I've enjoyed the vulnerability. Has anybody else noticed that in their own team and in their colleagues and in their partner companies and in their clients?
Definitely.
How has vulnerability played its part, do you think?
I think the thing I wanted to add about Zoom and vulnerability is you see people putting up the backgrounds behind them, and you're almost like,
don't do that.
Yeah, let me see your kid.
My suggestion for 2021: ban Zoom backgrounds.
Yes.
I want to see the wonky walls and the half-finished bookshelves, and
right, and
I want to see the cat litter tray.
And so then when you have that conversation with, say, for me, a franchisee, and he's in the car in the van taking the kid to the orthodontist, you're going to kind of cut to the chase for the conversation, have a little bit of a joke, and maybe they'll feel like the walls are down of a corporate setting and they can really tell me what they need. And that's something I appreciate.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think in times of uncertainty, especially if people are feeling a sense of pressure, we had a couple of really intense pitches. And definitely when a dog or a cat or a toddler makes a cameo in the video, it provides this like much needed sense of lightness where you don't just see each other as colleagues, especially if somebody's not doing what you want them to do in that moment, and you're sort of reminded of each other's humanity. And I think that that's so important. And I've seen, I don't know, I think it would, I hope that it means that teams are turning on each other a little bit less, where it's very hard to have that sense of animosity towards somebody when you're staring their little dog in the eye.
What would you have done differently in the first 3 months compared to the later 3 months? What have you learned that you wish you'd adopted from the beginning of these troubling times, from the beginning? Anything in particular?
I wish I would have taken more walks in the beginning. I think that's to your point, adapting to working from home and feeling that pressure of being hyper productive because others can't see you. It's almost a compensation. Yeah.
So you can clear your mind, give yourself space.
Yeah, take
because
that freedom.
creativity, of course, needs, like we've said, it needs a downtime. We actually need to be bored. I think it's healthy to actually be bored. And we can fill our time up too quickly. And you know, walking clears your mind.
Relaxing a little more. Or even if it's in the daytime, step away from your computer, have a cup of tea, go outside, stuff like that. I hope I do that more this time.
Hope?
For me, I think I would have maybe allowed myself to throw the brief out the window sometimes.
Yes.
Because as I said, when you're taking people on a creative journey who aren't familiar with the process or, you know, don't really care for the process, I think it's important to help inspire their creativity. And I think in the video that we created, I actually ended up being in it, and that wasn't for lack of people.
You were behind the till, if I remember.
I was the cashier.
You were the cashier.
But that was more to inspire other people to like just do it and go for it and let my hair down a little bit, and that's totally okay. And I think it just kind of makes creativity a little more contagious.
You've been living on WhatsApp, haven't you?
I have. Yeah, that's a big tool for us, WhatsApp. I have agencies all over the place. I actually just received a message before the panel that the minister in Luxembourg was in the store and they snapped a photo and can we share it? And I'm not going to tell you what I said.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, good day.
Thank you for shopping.
Right, but it's a bit more off the cuff, and social's always been very on the fly, but especially now, it's just a lot more quick turn stuff than ever. So.
And Steph, what do you wish that you or Virtue would have adopted, you know, from the get-go?
Yeah, I think I wish from the get-go that I just like fully rolled with the change. Because I think in the beginning there was a lot of preparation, especially from our clients, of like the new normal and trying to sort of like engineer experiences for the when we get back. And I think in that period, hindsight 2020, that had just, you know, sort of thrown the rules out the window and fully embraced the new climate that we're in. Because I've actually found in many cases, like especially through the examples like Vibe and the Most Office, that some brilliant creativity can actually come through this moment, and just been able to sort of throw myself fully into that mentality. And that's certainly where my headspace is at now. Like, don't try to retrofit a model that isn't working in this period of time, and instead try to build a better one.
What about, I mean, let's imagine that all this is over, and on the stroke of the 1st of January, we all go back to what it was like in 2019, shock horror, and we're traveling and we can actually eat in restaurants. What do we want from 2021 in terms of how we collaborate with colleagues and partners in business? What are we looking for? What do we want for a future in marketing, in branding? What's next for us? What do we want to be next for us?
I would say more empathy, less predictability.
Oh, that's good. Can you give us an example of empathy, where you've seen empathy in action, either at Virtue or perhaps with another brand?
Yeah, I think that what we've seen, and it's much more personal than it is like some sort of like seismic campaign evolution, which is like, I think it's easy for us to identify when a team member is struggling. And there's just an extraordinary amount of rallying around people who are struggling in order to ensure that they feel okay, and making them feel like whatever they're going through, that we are there to support them as a team and as people, not as bosses or employees or colleagues or whatever. And I would love to see that level of empathy and care continue to trickle through into whenever we go back to work, because it feels like a really lovely thing.
Are there brands out there that are getting it right?
Yeah, I think that there absolutely are. I mean, I think VanMoof and Five Guys are two of them for sure. I mean,
You're just saying that.
No, I really believe it. I think that that Converse is also doing a really brilliant job. And I think that there are a few brands out there that are continuing. I mean, I think there are a lot of also like local companies that are really getting it right. You see like Decas, the restaurant here, delivering vegetable boxes as an additional revenue stream, or Troppo Giovane, like a wine company, instead of just being a wine store, doing curated wine boxes. And I think this type of creativity in terms of like how you evolve your business model towards stuff that people might want and need, and bonus if you can make that more inclusive and sustainable, like that's the stuff that's been really cool to see.
It sounds like you're being inspired by the creativity at a local level.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
We're not looking necessarily on a global scale, but we're looking at the smaller nuances and the details.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's been a bit of both. Like, I love sort of the way that Converse has been able to bring in global creators into way more digitally focused executions and stuff that's like really beautiful digital art direction in ways that I hadn't expected, which has been great. But of course, on a local level, I think that you're getting more of that stuff that feels communal.
Yeah.
And so for me, those two things have been the most inspiring.
And hope, Caroline, what's been inspiring you to hope for a better 2021?
Sure. So for me, I think Five Guys is a super operational company, and being able to marry operations and creative has, it's been great. And I think people internally that don't always, obviously don't have a marketing background or a creative background are starting to see like the good that it can do, not just creating the video or the Instagram story, but also zhuzhing up our Google listing and being able to look at the analytics and how that can drive traffic and how many clicks we have to more of a marketing page that we set up. And so I think it's the whole user experience from start to finish, and people are starting to see internally how marketing can play a larger role in that. So I'm inspired by, I think, the progress that we've made there. And I hope it continues.
Caroline, for you?
I also feel like I hope that we take on this new awareness for the human side of each other. I like how in these Zoom calls, everyone is equal, and even in like the higher management, we have a lot of males in the higher management at VanMoof, and you see them
that needs changing.
You see them as fathers, and I hope, we remember that from each other, that everyone's just a person doing their job, and that's part of your whole life, and a lot going on in life. And for brands, I like how this year, despite of all the terrible things that have happened this year, that kind of, we've cut the crap a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know how many newsletters I have unsubscribed from because it's just some random brand selling me random stuff as if they're blind to what's going on in the world. I don't need this right now.
I think we've become potentially clearer about what we want and what we don't want.
Yeah, and maybe we
important.
rethought how we buy or what we need.
Yeah.
I like that feeling, and
that
I hope we continue.
refresh is actually, it's potent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, let's take some questions from the audience.
I have a bit of a personal question for Hope, which is Five Guys, headquarters European in Amsterdam. When do we get an Amsterdam store? I can't go to Utrecht all the time.
Ask the gemeente. We're working on it. We're working on it in one capacity or another. We want to be here. and we love having our headquarters here. We've got 7 stores, so you can take the train to Utrecht.
I do.
Thank you.
30 minutes from my door to door.
You'll be the first to know when we have one.
Great. There's a couple of Taco Mundos I could suggest. You could take over those. Hey,
Other stores are available.
Yeah, right. It's not like, that's not right. Of course, getting the right vergunningen in Amsterdam, that's an issue. Hey, one thing I was very excited to hear is the talk about sort of empathy and looking at the whole people and no backgrounds to get an insights into real people. And seeing, your colleagues in a different way, and maybe that was a nice optimistic take that makes them more human and you forgive them more. The skeptic in me sometimes was going, what about the other side, where it just makes you, mad that they can't run, their home life quietly as well or something. But my question is so it was interesting to see people in a different way and see how different departments got together, especially different cities. Obviously Zoom helps all that. What about the creativity of actually working with your team in the same place? Those sorts of common creative sessions. How do those move forward in this new digital way?
Well, for us, my team is relatively small. We're 5 of us. You can't meet. Our office is closed, so we turned, for a period of time, we turned that into walks. So your meeting would be a walk through the Oosterpark. We'd meet up near the office. And that does something to the dynamic when you're talking to a colleague or talking about a challenge that you want to solve together when you're physically moving through a park.
It can be very therapeutic, can't it?
Yeah, and it calms you. I don't know,
Even being outside, there's something nice about that, even in bad weather.
Looking forward to that in the snow come winter.
Oh, that's interesting. Any other angles? I'm curious.
I mean, for us, we really do try to avoid meeting in person, and we usually save that for the actual production itself, which is distance, wearing masks, like the whole 9 yards. But we have met at a co-working space once or twice. There's some really nice ones in Amsterdam that are really enabling, to getting together safely. But like I said, we try and limit it, and phone calls, we do what we can, but it is tough.
But is there a sacrifice in creativity because we no longer have those sorts of casual contacts? Or do we get by? Has it been replaced with something else? Solo step-based creativity or something like that?
To be honest, I've been really positively surprised at how I've actually found that we've been, I think, more creative since this period because we're more open to reaching out to unexpected places for inspiration. I mean, our teams at the moment, I don't think that I've worked on a project where we really had a team working out of the same city months, maybe even a year or so. So we've been working in a way where our teams are by nature in different cities around the world. So those physical meeting spaces didn't have a ton of utility for us for a while. And I think now learning to embrace those digital meeting rooms as if they were physical spaces can sometimes feel even more personal than a meeting room. Like as we've been talking about, for example, my girlfriend is an illustrator, and the entire back wall of my office is a fully illustrated mural, and my cats are coming in and out of the Zoom call all the time. And I think that sort of gives a different element and a different vibe to your conversation that sometimes can be more creatively inspiring than like an office space or a boardroom, especially if they've got cubicles and stuff.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I think that also that needs must, and we've had to adapt. Yeah. And we've actually learned, certainly at my company, we've actually learned that you don't have to travel to see a client. You don't have to get on a plane. We have found ways around it, and we have found ways of communicating through phone calls or video conferencing, and kept the spontaneity up and kept the innovation, within the whatever becomes a room. So, I've been pleasantly surprised by that. Actually, you don't have to travel to be together.
It's interesting. Even if you look at an event like this, which is so full-on real events. That was one thing, and then when that could all stop, we went to the basically glorified Zoom calls. That was not quite satisfying. But here we are in a limited interaction. It's kind of like renting a space and having those moments when you need them, and then we can still have that connection with people out all over the world, and yet have a proper conversation. So who might have expected that there actually was a silver lining to all this?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you, Andrew, for the additional questions. I want to wrap up by thanking you, Caroline, Hope, and Steph. Thank you, audience. Without you, we're nothing. And we can cut to the chase and go back to our individual bedrooms, kitchens, and dining rooms.
With no backgrounds.
With no backgrounds, please. Maybe wear underwear and bring the kids and the cats into the workspace, into the video conference, and we'll keep it collaborative and creative. Be safe and be curious. Thank you, everyone. Over and out.